Ben Walker lives in silence now, but it's not the same kind of silence as before. Back then it was empty. Now it's freedom. He wakes up without an alarm clock, lives wherever he wants. He's seen sunsets on 5 different continents and goes barefoot whenever he feels like it. But it wasn't always like that. There was a time when he couldn't even get out of bed. His bank account was empty. Debt was piling up, and he constantly felt like the world was forgetting about him. Everything fell apart. But right there in the rubble, he made the most unexpected choice. To start from scratch, alone. He didn't turn into a genius, didn't win the lottery. He just decided that the biggest investment in life was himself. Today, Ben has what a lot of people dream of: time, peace, and control. But to understand how he got there, we need to go back to the day he almost lost everything. Ben Walker was broken. Not financially, that came later. First, he broke on the inside. The spark in his eyes, it was gone. Every morning felt the same: alarm clock, dread, silence, heaviness. But not the kind of weight you carry around, the kind that comes from what you've lost. He had a respectable job, made good money, paid his bills, but that wasn't living. It was a comfortable prison. Slowly, the emotional debt started outweighing the financial one. Sleepless nights became more common. Motivation vanished. Anxiety became the norm. And then came the blow. Company downsizing. The layoff arrived by email. Thank you for your service. Ben stared at the screen for minutes. He didn't feel angry, just empty. In the days that followed, routine turned into ruin. Maxed out credit cards, late rent, friends disappearing. Resume sent, no replies. The bills started piling up. And with them, silence. No one called, no one asked, no one noticed. He still had a phone, but it didn't ring anymore. Still had social media, but stopped posting. Stopped showing up, stopped trying. The worst part wasn't losing money. It was losing the image he had of himself. His pride, identity, self-esteem, all turned to dust. Ben spent hours on the couch. Sometimes in the dark, sometimes with the TV on, but not really watching. It felt like life was passing him by, and he'd been left behind. He remembered things he'd heard before. The market's volatile. Everything's cyclical. The crash always comes. Now it made sense. But this time, the market was him, and he was crashing. The day Ben Walker turned things around didn't have any inspiring soundtrack. No movie-like speech. No one came to the rescue. It was just another ordinary day. Cloudy, quiet, gray. He woke up late, like always. The room was dark, stuffy. His body felt heavy. But that day, something inside gave out. It wasn't the kind of tired from a bad night's sleep. It was the exhaustion of staying the same. He walked to the bathroom, looked at himself in the mirror, and didn't like what he saw. Not because of the tired face, but because he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually tried. Tried for real. Tried to live. Tried to change. That's when he did the first different thing in weeks. He went out for a walk. No destination, no headphones, just him and the sound of his own footsteps. For the first time, the silence made sense. The streets were the same, people rushed by, but inside something had shifted. It wasn't motivation, it was lightness. When he got back home, he opened his laptop. 38 tabs open, not one useful. He closed them all, typed a single sentence into Google, how to start over from scratch. Most of the answers were surface level, generic lists, empty promises. But in the middle of the scrolling, he clicked on a video. He doesn't remember the title or the channel. Just remember someone said, "You don't have to win today, you just have to start." That hit like a punch. For the first time in months, Ben cried. Quietly, not out of pain, but relief. For the first time, he understood. It wasn't about conquering the world. It was about conquering himself. And that started right then. That day, Ben didn't become a new man, but he planted a seed, tiny, almost invisible, but real. And in that moment, he felt hope. Ben Walker's rebuild didn't come with applause. No one was saying good job. No fans cheering him on. He rebuilt in the dark. He started with the basics. Waking up earlier, taking a shower before noon, opening the window, letting the light in. Small habits, repeated stubbornly. Even when his brain screamed it wasn't making a difference. He made a simple spreadsheet. Fixed expenses, variable ones, debt. It hurt to see the numbers. But it was also freeing for the first time. He knew exactly where he stood. He started studying, not to get rich, but to understand how the world worked. How he worked, he watched videos, read books, took notes. Sometimes it made no sense, but he kept going. He unfollowed people who only showed a perfect life. Started following those who showed the process. He got back into working out. No pressure, no expectations. Just a few minutes a day. It was less about the body and more about the mind. He still messed up. There were days he slid backward, relapses, doubts, crises. But something had changed in him. This time he didn't stop. Little by little, he started landing a few freelance gigs, made a little money. But it wasn't about the amount, it was what it meant. For the first time, he felt like he was building something, like a stock that's finally going up after a long decline. He even laughed to himself, thinking, feels like I became my own recovery chart. And it was true. Ben wasn't winning, but he was coming back, and that momentum was already a win. The hardest part he'd already done, choosing to keep going. Ben Walker's first freelance gigs paid terribly, about $15 a job, sometimes even less. He'd spend hours writing, editing, revising, just to earn what he used to blow on a single dinner. But he kept doing it anyway, not for the money, but because every delivery was a statement. I'm still here. Ben knew that wasn't enough to pay off all his debts, but he also knew it was the first step out of the hole. He cut everything. Netflix, takeout, fancy coffee, sold stuff, books, gear. He made space, gave things up so he could breathe. Started using an old notebook to track every single cent, wrote down even the loose change. And within a few weeks, he realized something no one likes to admit. He didn't need more money. He needed more focus. With the basics under control, he changed tactics. Stopped taking every job that showed up. Started studying which ones paid better. Learned copywriting. Took free courses. Offered different services. Gave basic consulting to small businesses that didn't know how to sell online. Ben pulled late nights. Went to bed late. Woke up early. But now every hour was worth more. He started negotiating his debts. Got lower interest rates. Paid off the essentials first. Cleared his name from collections. And with that, took a weight off his shoulders. In 6 months, he wasn't rich, but for the first time in years, he was in control. And that's when he did something most wouldn't even consider. Set aside a portion of his income, no matter how small, to invest. Not because it was the right time, but because he realized if he waited for life to get better, he'd never start. And right there, between one bill paid and another one renegotiated, the Ben the investor was born. Not the guy chasing hot trades, but the guy who played the long game because he knew the biggest return would come from staying consistent. When Ben Walker started getting his life back, he knew he needed more than just discipline. He needed direction, and that direction came through learning. From the time he spent trying to understand something that once felt way out of reach, investing. At first, he thought the stock market was only for rich folks, or for people who got lucky. But the more he studied, the more he realized. The logic behind the market was the same as in life. Crashes always come. The drops are scary. But those who see the bigger picture spot value where most only see fear. That's how he started, with very little, buying knowledge before buying stocks. He studied how economic cycles work, learned what the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, and the Russell 2000 were, realized even big companies bleed. But those who invest with a long-term mindset plan in the winter to harvest in the summer. While most were selling out of fear, Ben was buying with clarity. He focused on what no one wanted. Undervalued stocks, overlooked sectors, hidden opportunities. Palantir, Nvidia, Tesla. He didn't buy because of hype. He bought because he understood the story behind the numbers. He used the little he had and invested it carefully with research and courage. He diversified, put some into solid ETFs like SPX and QQQ, another portion into companies he deeply believed in, but more than investing in assets. He kept investing in himself, took more courses, learned marketing, built side income through small online projects and consulting, reinvented his career, his perspective, his time. Little by little, money stopped being a ghost and became a tool. He still lived simply, but now with the power of choice. And that's when he realized financial freedom isn't about getting rich. It's about not depending on anyone. It's knowing that if everything falls apart again, he's got the tools to rebuild. Today, Ben Walker lives in silence, but it's not the same silence as before. Back then, it was a void. Now it's presence. He doesn't have mansions, no luxury card, but he has time. And to him, that's worth more than any number in a bank account. He wakes up when his body tells him to, works on things that matter, lives wherever he wants, and travels whenever he feels the need to reconnect with himself. He's watched the sunset in Thailand, wrote an article in a cafe in Lisbon, spent an entire afternoon reading by a lake without checking the time once. The money, it comes because it was planted with patience. But it's not the focus. It's just the result. Ben's biggest achievement isn't in his bank balance. It's in how he sees himself today. A guy who hit rock bottom and knew how to climb back up. A guy who got tossed aside by the system and now creates his own system. A guy who figured out that the greatest asset he has isn't in the stock market, isn't in the economy. It's in him. And maybe that's your story too, just still at the beginning. The question is, are you going to wait for someone to invest in you, or will you be the first to do it? The market will rise, it'll fall, so will life. But once you understand your value, you'll never be up for sale again. If you've made it this far, drop a comment. What part of Ben's story hit you the hardest? And if this message spoke to you, consider subscribing to the channel. Around here, we don't just talk about money, we talk about value. Your value.